And I think that we've done a pretty good deal with this, and we appreciate you coming out. Also appreciate you coming out for this seminar this morning, the first one this morning, with Bob Abbott of Dog Tired TV. I interviewed Bob on the Outdoor Magazine radio show a few weeks ago, and what a wealth of information. You also should know that he is one of the guys instrumental in getting the law passed that allows you to use centerfire rifles after dark now, and that's a big, big deal. You have him to thank for that primarily. So Bob's seminar is going to run about an hour. He will open it up to questions and answers, and I'll get out of the way and let the experts do their thing. Thank you, guys.
All right. You all hear me okay out there? Yep. All right. I want to thank everybody, first of all, for coming out today, and what an honor it is to stand up here in front of a group of hunters like this and share the knowledge that I and myself and the rest of the Dog Tired TV have gained, hunting over the last decade or so for coyotes. We started out, or I started out, and I think all of us started out just something to do after deer season, to tell you the truth. And my son-in-law and I wandered off 200 yards out from the house we live in, and I'd been hearing the coyotes in there quite a bit, and he had a hand call, and never been out before, either one of us, and I believe it was the dog nasty, the green nasty, there you go. And we sat down and set up in a spot that we thought was going to be good, just inside a tree line, and within 5 minutes he had a triple in front of us, and I had hit my first coyote. It was months later, however, before I got another one. A lot of times in the field, it just takes trial and error and listening to as much as you can. Other people have been successful at it, and sooner or later it comes to you. How many in the room are just new to coyote hunting? Raise your hands. How many in the room are doing the night hunting? Raise your hands. Basically, I'm here to talk mostly about the night hunting tactics. They also will work during the day. There's some things that you're going to do that's different at night. We'll do night hunting, and we'll talk about that a lot. We're going to cover the use of lights. Those of you that are night hunting, how many are just using lights? There you go. Okay. There's special techniques and tricks to using those lights that you may or may not know, and we're going to go over that. And that's part of the reason you see a coyote sitting up there on a table. We're going to show, demonstrate how we use the lights. Okay. I'm not saying it's the only way to use the lights, but it's how we use them and how we've been successful in doing that. So. We'll go through this. I'm going to show some videos. I'm going to show some actual layouts, setups of what we've done, the wind direction, where we put the call, why we did, and then a video right after showing the result. So that'll give you guys kind of a feel, hopefully, that you're in the field with us, and be a little more exciting than just standing here telling you about it. That being said, yeah, 2 years ago I started the Michigan Predator Hunters for Centerfire at night. We were stuck with rimfires at that time. By then, we were doing a lot of damage control hunting on farms, and I was using a 17 WSM out of the Franklin Armory upper. It sits on an AR, looks like an AR, but it's firing a 17 WSM round. And unfortunately, we were having a lot of animals run off. Still made the farmers happy because they figured that I just didn't feel it was enough way to do it. And that's when I approached the DNR and talked to them, found out what it was going to take, did a little research, and gathered a good group of guys behind it. And there was a core 6 of us that pushed through that. It took us 14 months, and we did get the laws passed. So, that being said, I want to remind everybody, I'm sure you probably already know this, but I promised the DNR that I would always say this to any group of people. Identify your target and know what's behind it before you take the shot. Always the most important thing. You guys are going to go out and night hunt a piece of property that you haven't been on before. Insist to the landowner that you go out during the day and look it over. Google Maps is not always up to date. You may see things on Google Maps that you don't see when you go and visit in person during the day, but you may see stuff during the day that you're not going to pick up on Google Maps. Knowing the terrain of the property you're going out to is very important. Coyotes typically will take any low ground that they can to do an approach. If you go out during the day, scout it out, figure out where those coyotes might be exiting the woods, and I'm talking about setting up strictly in the fields, because that's what we do. And then try and pick your high point that you can sneak into at night without being detected for a place to set. Otherwise, they're going to be up behind you and gone before you even know what's going on. So do that. So you do that for two reasons. You're doing it for safety reasons, to see what all is out there during the day, and to kind of find where the coyotes may come out at in the lower spots that they'll certainly follow. I can guarantee they will. I've got video here that we're going to show that. All right. Next thing I'm going to show is, the regulations passed. It is on the DNR site, but we get an awful lot of questions still on where exactly the land is, or the restrictions are. And this map you can find up on the Michigan Predator Hunters for Center Fire at Night page on the Facebook page, and we've spread it out around a lot of other places. Basically below the rifle line, first of all, the entire state is .269 diameter bullet. Nothing larger than that. When you get down below the rifle line, you're limited to private land only, okay? Now that also includes hapland. A lot of guys have wondered, called and said, Bob, what about the hapland? The hapland is considered private, and you can hunt that at night with a .26 diameter bullet or smaller. During the daytime laws doesn't change. You can use a 50 BMG if you want during the day. Anywhere in the state, if that makes any sense, okay? So anyway, private land only, that's it. When you get above the state line, you can use, you're not restricted to a rimfire at night. Okay? Your state land and the other is open to that. So, yeah, all except for parks and recreations area. Any questions with that? Yes, sir.
Hey, Bob, I just wanted to point out, you told me on the phone the one day when you and I talked about not hunting on elevated blinds.
Right. That's a totally different thing. Absolutely, at night, you're not allowed to hunt out of any elevated platform, which, that's being worked on, okay? I can't tell you when and if it's gonna come up in front of the council, but I have already addressed that with DNR. Matter of fact, I had an hour-long conversation with Adam Bump, who's the chief wildlife biologist, and he presents a lot of these laws to go through. So for this year's cycle, it's not going to happen. 2020, they're going to talk about it. I can tell you that there's not a lot of opposition to it. But
what about during the day?
During the day, you can.
Okay.
It's nighttime only that you cannot hunt from an elevated platform.
Did you ever give you any kind of reason, or?
I'm sorry.
When you talk to them for an hour, do they ever give you a reason for that?
The reason is always safer.
Yeah?
The reason is always safer. When I first asked them, when I originally started the Center Fire at Night movement, they were looking for suggestions from Adam Bump to help reduce the coyote population. And he gave several recommendations to him during that meeting. I approached the DNR law enforcement chief and assistant chief, Dean Hagler and Gary Molnar, out in the break area after one of the meetings, and I walked up to him and presented the idea to him. Rod was with me. And that's right away, they rejected it. No, safety problem. Well, you'll never get it passed. Those were the words. So there we were 14 months later. But no, it's always safety. You know, And of course, we all know that as deer hunters, I'm in my blind long before the sun comes up, so I'm doing it at night anyway. And when I leave at night, I'm coming down at night, you know? So I think there's a good chance it'll go, but that's 2 years down the road at least. Okay, everybody hear me okay? Do I sound like I'm out of breath because I am? So, right. But yeah, feel free to bump in and ask questions like this, and we will have a Q&A at the end for setup type questions and that kind of thing to talk about. All right, let me see my agenda here. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is show a coyote. And, okay, let's see. A lot of people really don't realize you aren't shooting at a deer. Okay? Notice, this is the heart. This is where the heart's at. See how far up forward that is? Watch this leg bone. And then it comes up, the bone comes this way. Your optimal shot, if you aren't taking a headshot, is here. This is where it needs to go. You're up here. If you don't spine them, that bull's going to go right through, and they're going to be a runoff. 9 times out of 10, that's what's going to happen. So this is your hot spot. This is where you need to focus on. If they're facing you straight on, try and remember where that spot's at. Okay. And most of you in here may have already known that, but there are some people that don't realize that, so that's why I brought this up. I think what we're going to do next is, you know, prior to doing your set, you can be in the most populated coyote spot in the world. If you blow your set before you go in, you're already done. And by that I mean you're pulling up, shutting your lights off as soon as possible, make sure you don't have a door dinger going off, don't slam your doors, don't talk, that sort of thing.
Turn your radio down.
Yep, turn your phone off. Yeah, if you were watching my YouTube videos, I was guilty of that. So here's the ringer going on. But, you know, check yourself, slow down, shut that phone off, make sure you got everything. It's important to be organized all the time anyway, but at night I have found it's much more important. I always put stuff in the same pocket. You know, I typically have, I've got pockets here, I've got pockets here, I've got a pocket here, and I always put everything right back in the same spot. I'm not fumbling for stuff. I'm not losing time trying to figure out where things are at. I got mags in each pocket and that kind of thing, and I'm all ready. I'm one time out of the truck and we're on our way. So, another little tip. Wind direction, very important. On top of everything else, if you're blowing your scent into where those coyotes are already at, they're gone. They smell you in there hauling. They're out of there. So pay attention, check where the wind's at before you go out, and also once you get set up. You'd be amazed at what the terrain will do to the wind direction because of a lane that's coming down. And if you're hunting one certain spot that is not affected by a major wind that's blowing, your wind could be going out in a completely different direction. So we have found that an awful lot. Matter of fact, I'm going to show a setup here where that's happened to us more than once. And another thing we found is the lighter the wind, the more likely it is for it to swirl from occasion to occasion. So if that wind's blowing 8 miles an hour or better, you can pretty much count on where that wind is not going to be swirling, it's going to go in the same direction. For us, we're usually hunting, at least 2 of us. Rob and I hunt together 90% of the time. Occasionally we've got Fred or somebody else with us. First thing that happens, before we start any calling, and this is very important, you get everything dialed in. If you've got a light over a day scope that you're using, Make sure you've got that light beam focused, the light intensity you want on, and it's ready to go. And then let the guy that's doing the calling, in our instance, it's generally me, and then everybody's ready. Because all it takes is one little bump. This has got Fox Bang on it, and I've accidentally had it on and bumped the call and been 20 yards away from my rifle, and Rob's going, this goes bang, I hear the coyote, 600 yards away we see a coyote bust and come hauling butt to us. Was there within 30 seconds. So they can surprise you sometimes and be on top of you before you know it, guys and gals, ladies, everyone. When I say guys, just kind of take that. I'll say gang from now on. So, but yeah, be ready. Be ready before you get that call. We're going to do a light demo now. We're going to go over that a little bit with you. It'll take us just a second here to get set up. You want the headlamp, Rob? No, I think so. Okay. For the guys that are using lights, what I would recommend is to go with some kind of a headlamp like this for scanning. This you will always leave on. Your rifle light you can leave shut off. After you've got everything set up, shut the light off on the rifle. And that'll save your battery, because these things go through batteries pretty good when you leave them on all the time. The light stays on, and the important part is, hopefully we'll be able to see this. Okay, see where those eyes are starting to reflect, everybody? Notice that the hot spot of that beam is well above him. What's lighting those eyes up right now is what they call the bloom of the light. And this is the way you should be scanning. Don't use your hot spot to scan, okay? 9 times out of 10, that you're going to spook that coyote and he's going to be gone. So when you're scanning, you've got the hot spot up, and you're just using, you can't really see it real well in this room, but there's a big bloom coming out.
Can we turn the light down a little more?
Yeah, we can try that a
The
little
lights are
more.
off, it's the ones back
Okay.
here. I don't know where lights are.
Were these the dimmers, Rob?
Yeah, there you go. I can go from back here.
Okay, that might help a little bit. It's still not real dark. Well, you guys can see where the bloom is back here, where my hot spot is, because I can see them lighting up your faces right here, but the hot spot's up there. This is what you need to do. So, your bloom, all right, there's some eyes. Okay, this thing's out 300 yards. We have no idea what it is yet. We're going to work to see if we can get those eyes to come to us. We're going to try and work that animal in with us. You can either use it with the call. Most of us carry a squeak, what we call a coaxer. And try and get that to come to us. If it's a predator, 9 times out of 10 it's coming to see you. All right, now we've got the coyote under 200 yards, preferably he's only 100 yards. At that time, you're going to switch on your rifle light. You're going to lower it slowly. You're going to catch it with the bloom, and when you're ready to shoot, you're going to light it up. Okay? Then squeeze the trigger. Generally, they'll freeze at that point, and you'll have a little bit of time to get on them. But that's the best way we found to use the lights. When we started out using them, it was, God, we got to use this hotspot. We got to see, identify everything out there, and we were having them stuff come to the tree line and turning around and going back. How do we get them to come back? Well, the reason is they're out there they're not used to seeing that light out in the middle of that field or the edge of the field, and all of a sudden, bang, you're on them, and they're gone. Took us a while to figure that out, but that's what works for us.
The real nice thing about the newer adjustable lights like this one is if you're not running two sets of lights, the headlamp is scanning, and all you have is your weapon mounted light, I can turn this thing on barely. Shut that light back down for a second, Bob. And I'm running at like 10% of the capability right now.
Right.
And you keep it up high like that. And then as they come in, or if it's a little bit further out, I mean, you can crank this thing way up, but they're adjustable from like 10% all the way up to 100. And a lot of times that's what we do, because IR have always run a little bit different than using the red light itself, so but we'll get into that too. You guys prefer these lights down like this, or do you want them back up how they were?
Yeah. What's the best lighting for everybody out here?
It's fine.
This good, right here?
Yeah, that's fine.
You can see the screen okay? All right. Did anybody gain anything from that? I had never seen that kind of a, I've seen people talk about it before, but I've never seen anybody actually do that kind of a simulation, walking through it, and I thought I'd try it because to me it seemed like it would be easier to grasp what we're trying to do. Okay. Yes, sir.
You ever run just a white light at all? Is it always red?
At one time, I did run white lights, and my partner wanted to beat me over the head for it. You know, you see that in Texas and a lot of other places, and it does work for some guys. I think for Michigan, and the conditions here, and the coyotes that we're hunting here, they just don't like that white light at all. They don't like it.
What about the green?
Well, here's, you know what? Have we got a green light? This is perfect.
I have a green light, the handheld that never gets used, a tiny like green pen light.
Okay, it might work in here. Fred Gaspy's in the other room. He's the other member of our Dog Tired TV group. At one time I went with the green, and the reason I went with the green is because I could see better. Okay? So, therefore I thought green was better. Fred had discovered that red reflected better than the green, okay? The green kind of lets you see things a little better, but the red actually brought out the reflective part of whatever you're looking at much brighter, and it was much more apparent. So I went to red. That's all I can, that's my impression, and that was my experience with it, and I've been red ever since. So, that's kind of my answer.
Personal experience, the green is downright painful in snow or fog. It's
Yeah.
so bright, our eyes pick it up so well. Like it hurts to look through the scope. At least the light I was using. So I switched over to that.
It's hard to hear you.
Yeah, I know.
Down there.
Is that turned on, Ron?
I don't think so.
No, it's on. It's on.
My cat,
Test.
like stone. Thanks for buying up for that. Okay.
I wouldn't discourage anybody from trying it. If that's what you have on hand is a green light, get out and try it. Use it. Depending on which light you're using, we all use Nice Night, but plenty of the other companies too. You can buy just different bulbs. So.
Okay, so just to recap, you'll always bloom with your scan light. Once that animal is within range, that you think is within range, then you move to your rifle, turn that light on when it's up on your rifle. You'll turn it on when it's pointed up, and then you're going to ease down onto your target, find it with the bloom, and then hit it with your hot spot idea. And, take the shot. Good luck.
Is there anything to the speed at which you're scanning back and forth? Like, are you pausing? Are you just a solid?
What you think you're most comfortable with. I tend to scan slower. I'm older. And you'll see also in a thermal demonstration video here where I scanned by a coyote that was standing next to a deer, and I thought, that's two deer standing by, and all of a sudden I went, oh no, it's not. It turned around. By then Rob had it down, so Yeah, we'll show you that. But it's gonna, I really think that's gonna depend on what you feel most comfortable with. Remember, that bloom is, you're scanning with that bloom, they're not near as sensitive to that bloom. Coyotes really don't see the color red, it's kind of a gray to them. Okay. Oh, the other thing I want to point out, I talked about just the one person, but you got two people, when you're scanning, and you got your partner scanning here, try and have your own partner only scan to this part, and you only scan to this part. Because look what happens when I do this. Hold your arm out, Rob. I have now, right at this point, okay, created a shadow, and the coyotes are going to pick that up. They're going to see that, and they'll be gone. So try and be cognizant of not lighting up your partner ever. And I'm telling you, he's going to go, Kyle, and you're going to go like this. Trust me. There's no way around it, guys. It's instinctive. So we've blown our share of sets, trust me. All kinds of ways. Slamming the door, leaving the phone on,
Banging a remote,
banging a remote.
dropping something.
You know, it happens. It's going to happen. Then you're going to, we're out the thermal. We're using the thermal to scan with. That's what this is, which allows you to be totally dark. The only time we use these lights is at the back of the truck if we need assistance in trying to set something up. Generally, we can set up without any lights, but sometimes tear down leaving, we'll point it right down on our feet. And so yeah, that's when we use these lights, and then also to go out and retrieve if we have to. And it's helpful to carry. These don't show, if you happen to have one, you got a blood trail. These don't show blood very well, so carry a little white flashlight with you or something. That'll help. All right. I don't care what you use, whether you're going to use thermal, digital night vision, or lights, they're all going to be affected by the atmosphere and the weather to some degree. There is no magic bullet. The thermals are no better than the lights in a lot of conditions, and the lights are no better than the thermals. We've hunted in. I shot a coyote in some of the heaviest fog I'd ever been in. The thermal was only effective out to about 80 yards. And this is a 1,500-yard thermal device I'm using, but you get that. Thermals work off of heat differentiation, and that's how they work. And when you've got that heavy, dense fog in there, your effective range is greatly decreased. Yep. Yep. So you got your times of that. Matter of fact, after I shot that one coyote twice, Rob was out looking at a different spot, and I couldn't tell where it was in the thermal, but his headlamp, I could just make out the red, the light red in the distance. He was only 100 yards away, so yeah. All right. I think now we'll move on to some actual setups that I've got here for you. Sure, I wish this was a little bigger. Maybe I can zoom it to get the top and bottom out of it. That'll help a lot. Okay, we knew the coyotes were in here and in here when we set up. We hunt this quite a bit. The wind direction was running this way, so we could be blowing our scent up this way. We set up right here, actually where this is at. There were, was it just you and I, or was Fred with us? No, it was just you and I. And I set the collar here, and the hopes was that they would swing around wide and come in this way. or they would swing around wide and come in this way.
Can I ask you to lower that rifle down a little bit? You're black.
Oh, is it? Oh, as a matter of
black
fact,
in the
let's
screen.
let's put it right on the floor.
Thank you.
You know, I tested it from the back of the room and never sat in the front of the room. Is that better? Yeah, it
Yeah, I
had
can
been
see
anyway the whole
now.
time.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so I can tell this is a very important part for you because you wanted to see this. That's great. Anyway, we sat up right there. We did some distress calls. Rabbit, and I'll usually start out at a low volume with a distress call, and I'll let it play 2 to 3 minutes, and then I'll pause it. I'll wait a couple of minutes. And I'm kind of an antsy person, so I can't tell you I waited 15 minutes. Trust me, it was 2 or 3 minutes, and I wanted something else. And when we did, we noticed some deer popping up in here. This is a cut cornfield at the time, and it's got some rolls and dips and stuff in it. We noticed some deer popping up. We ended up with quite a few deer standing up in here. Did a couple of female lone howls. If you're going to use vocals, it's something else we'll go into. You want to make sure that it's not an intimidating thing. Something like pup distress or female lone howl are very safe. So, yeah, we did that. Didn't work. So I went to pup distress, coyote pup distress, and played it at a pretty loud volume. All of a sudden, we had deer busting out of this marsh. And Rob and I both said, gotta be a coyote in there. Gotta be a coyote pushed them out. And sure enough, this coyote had come right out here and come right up to here and sat. And Rob ended up getting it, so worked out just perfect. Even though it didn't swing around downwind, I'm sure what it was heading for was there a low spot. There's a low spot right in here. He was probably planning on hitting that low spot and coming back around. That ended up to be, I think, a 150-yard shot.
Something like that.
Yeah.
He wasn't 80 yards behind all those deer that come out.
Yeah.
He come out and sat down, and deer stopped running. That's why we scanned past him. He scanned past him twice, thinking it was just a deer. And then realized one didn't look like the others.
So even with deer in the field, you can still, the coyotes will still come off the deer.
Yeah. The deer tend to know when there's a danger from the coyote when there isn't. And we've noticed that time after time after time. You'll have a coyote right in amongst with the deer, the coyote. But then we've seen times where the coyote, for some reason, those deer aren't out of there. So I honestly can't sit here and tell you that I know the secret to that.
I like
Why
it,
sometimes they
kind
do
of
it.
to intent. Like, how many guys have been out turkey hunting?
With me scanning with the thermal monocular, okay? And then you'll all of a sudden see, you drop it, and Rob's video will cut in. Well, I dropped it when I realized that that was a coyote that I just swung by. Those hot spots you're seeing in the field are all deer. That is a coyote. My rifle, of course, is pointing the wrong way. And then my partner nails it. So, there you go. That's an example of a setup and then success afterwards. So.
This is a team sport, correct?
I'm sorry, do what?
This is a team sport, correct?
Yes, it is, but it took me too long, you know. It really, when you're set up in these chairs, and I'm watching the other way, for me to try and get around and get on that thing and get settled in, it takes a while. That was an example of me trying to get settled back in. You'll see another one here in a minute where it came right in just like we thought it was going to. And I had no movement at all. But yeah, so there you go. Let's go back once again. To the image. You bet. There was different ways we played this. we could have gone this way. But what's the drawback to doing that? You're exposing yourself to a lot more movement for your setup. Okay? So you keep that in mind. This here, you can't see this, but was just kind of a direct approach down the lane. The farm buildings and stuff were in the background for us, kind of helped shield our movement in. And we could have come in closer, I guess, if we wanted to, but this was going to put us within range of a coyote without exposing a lot of ourselves. So you want to keep that to a minimum. The least amount of exposure that you can give, the better off you are when you're doing so. I don't care if you're using lights, thermal, digital night vision, whatever. Same thing if you're approaching a spot. Let's say this is a road here, park somewhere. I want to set up for this. Follow this tree line as close as you can. Okay. And preferably, if you've got a full moon out, the moon's going to be this way and going this way, so you're walking in the shadows of the moon. Always try and use, if there's a moon out, always try and use those shadows to your best advantage.
Question.
Yes, sir.
What were you guys sitting in? What was your cover? Because you talked about a cornfield being out there. What were you guys? What was your actual cover?
This is the middle of the night with no moon at all. We're sitting using our tripods.
Right. So you were just sitting out in the cornfield, pick cornfield?
No, it's actually this little road comes down through here. It's got some vegetation growing up about knee high or so. That was it.
Okay, so it was only knee high then.
Right. So you can get by with a lot of stuff you're not going to get by with during the day at night like that. You just got to know if there's snow on the ground, a lot of ambient light or moonlight, that's going to limit what you're going to be able to get away with. We have gone out, and I've got a video to show that, where the beans were about here, this high. About thigh high. Yeah, thigh high. There you go. And the coyotes were in the far back wood line. The terrain dropped off, so the wood line was down low, and it would be hard to see us. And there again, we're not using any lights. We're going in totally dark. We sneak in. The moon is off to our left. Okay. We come in, cut directly into the beans on one of the higher spots, and we're scanning the whole time to make sure we don't have something out there that's going to bust us. And we get and set up right in the middle of the beans. And I think the next video I'll show, yeah, I'll see if I can find that one. I'll show that next. So you kind of got to pay attention to what's going on. You got those I really love those really nice dark lights where there's no ambient light at all. Or it seems like your eyes never get adjusted. Those are perfect. You get away with a lot of stuff during that time. Let me see. Yeah, let's go to waiting now. This is another good one. It's going to be a good one. How many of you guys have called in a coyote and had it disappear? 15 minutes later, it's not there. It's the only one you see, and you don't hear anything howling. You've given this up, and you leave. Wow, a whole lot less people than I thought. Okay. The reason I decided I wanted to pick this and show it, because this coyote had come out back here and followed this tree line here. Collar set right here. Here is a low spot. Actually, the low spot runs right through here. Okay? So he could have gone this way, but because of the direction of the wind, he didn't. I knew he was going to go into this wood line. I didn't know it. I just had this 90% feeling that he was going to, and he did. On the video, you'll see we're going to jump from where he disappeared at this point think it's 17 minutes on the mark to where he come out here. And we were sitting right here. Caller was there. You'll see how badly I blew the shot when I show the video.
So there he is on the back side of that rise in that corner.
Right.
Anybody who doesn't.
See the spot right here?
Yep.
Okay. At that point, he's just started moving away from this tree line that he followed down, and he's coming towards us. He's following that tree line up.
How far away is that?
That point is probably 250. Granted, I could have taken a shot here, but I knew we were going to get him in closer. And ultimately, that should be your goal. Sorry about that, I talk to myself a lot.
It's even weirder when you're sitting right next to him.
I could tell by his body language he was going to commit. You see how he's moving around a lot? And we'll talk about the body language and stuff here in a little bit. Now he's gone. This guy was smart.
Most of the time, stand down at the bottom, you'll see it 17 minutes later.
I jumped ahead now.
Well, the coyote finally popped out of the woods just before it got down the woods. Here's completeness. I actually shot underneath the coyote.
See that handstand? You guys ever seen that?
Said right on. And to see you another day.
So there you go, guys. So there's actually a couple of good lessons in this particular one. You guys probably didn't hear that. No, that's wrong. No, that's right.
Yeah. Scopes, thermal scopes that you're running, are those the ones that you have on your guns here?
Yes. Yep. Well, these are newer versions. They're all pulsar stuff. They're just newer versions.
That video, 2 seasons old now?
Yeah, I think that's from 2 years ago.
So it's a different gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so a couple things. Don't give up. In between that time when that coyote moved out, I used no coyote vocals at all. I changed up to different rabbit distress sounds. Changed the pitch, changed the volume, and I actually started lowering the volume. And when I started lowering the volume, this one popped out. Okay? And when you talk about a fox that we worked on later, we've seen that tactic where he was curious in it. As I started lowering that volume, he broke the tree line. So anyway, we see what the guy did, all right? Luckily, the wind, we were here and was not, he came out here, so he had not spread our scent cone out. Otherwise, he would have gotten far enough down. Due to the fact there's a road there right behind us, we were set up, and actually this is the moon was here, hitting those trees, so we were sitting in the shade of the moon. We were covered by the tree shadows.
How far away is that caller from you?
This was, I believe, 58 yards. Generally, we'll keep it around 50 yards. We try and walk them out 50 paces.
How far did you park from where you can walk
I am
in?
parked in the next, actually I'm parked right here. You just can't see it. So this is going to be, I'm going to say 300 yards. This is an example. When I pull in here, my headlights I turn off before I pull in. I got the headlights off, no door dingers going, everything's quiet, nobody talks. We get our stuff out, get set up, we walk the road down. There's a little place to get in and go right there. Okay, the other thing I wanted to point out, that coyote never really did disappear. He was sitting right in the woods. I'd actually thought I'd hit him when I seen that hot spot there, and I left the rifle and I picked my thermal monocular up to see if he was laying there, which my mag was empty anyway, so it wouldn't have been good. But did you notice that switched up sounds?
No.
I went to pup distress. Immediately went to pup distress. Notice what that coyote did? He came right back out. That pup distress drew him right back out of that woods immediately. I just mag dumped him. And I know when I freeze framed that shot, when he went up, that bullet was 1 inch probably under his chest. And he jumped straight up and come back down to the handstand where you seen how he ran back in and then came back out. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you guys have the ability to do something like that, go into pup distress immediately after a shot and do it. 9 times out of 10, that pup distress, well, like you see in the previous video, brought him out when nothing else would, or bring them back right after they've been blazed away at. And then Fred got to, well, he was still trying to get to that pup. He still came out of the woods and was trying to get to that pup, and Fred threw 2 more shots at him. So.
A lot of times too, in that scenario, they say you sit through that same exact scenario, you shoot that dog, you kill that dog, they're on pup distress anyways.
Yeah.
A lot of times there's another one or 2 hanging back further, and they'll still come. Not always, but.
Do they come in to help the other pup, or they just come up?
It's more of an instinct to help out, I think. I couldn't stand here and say, yeah, that's for sure, but that seems to be the reaction we get.
How long do you hang out after you fire?
Well, this one wasn't too long after, because we immediately got up and looked for blood and stuff, because I could not believe it until I looked at the video that I actually missed him on that first shot. So, guys, this was a 40-yard chip shot.
I tend to go based on how I'm feeling and how long I've been there sometimes too. I had a situation, I was out Rose Lake on state land, set up the call was going for less than 10 minutes. I called in a single, took a shot as it was crossing the field, missed. Not 10 minutes later, I had another one come through. I killed that one. It was laying probably 170 yards out in the field. And 2 more times in less than 17 minutes space, I had a single spin. I called in 4 coyotes, one at a time.
Another half an hour and then.
Yeah, now if I'd already been set up and called that scenario for a half an hour, and then I shot one, I probably wouldn't hang out a half an hour afterwards. But I had just got there and I was calling in singles consistently about every 10 minutes. So I stayed. And I took 2 out of that.
Any other questions on that side? Dan, anything?
What time
Caliber do you normally use?
I'm sorry.
What caliber do you normally use?
I'm shooting a 223. Rob's shooting a 223. Your 6.5 Grundle and below is what became legal, okay? Which is nice. We ended up more than we originally asked for.
Now we're below the rifle line too, so if we're on state land, we're running 17
Right.
super nice.
Right.
Is that the rifle line or is it zone 3 line? That's the zone 3 line, I think.
The limited firearm line.
Well, no, on your map you showed it's dark green.
Right.
See, the red line is
Okay.
rifle line, and
Yeah.
the other line is
That's
zone
right,
3.
yeah.
Yep, this is actually the limited firearm deer zone is where the restriction is. And I have one thing to point out that I didn't.
Oh, so then your math is not right.
No, it's the blue line.
No, isn't that blue, the red line is the limited line, isn't it?
No, that
No.
red line is the zone 3 line. That's DNR's map, we just colored it in.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
is it?
we just
All
took
we
this
added
right
was
from
the green and the
DNR.
brown colors.
Oh, okay.
This is right directly off the DNR. All of this, with the exception of this note here and this here. No, even that's DNR. So, we just put this in. When you're down here, it did not change any of the pre-existing rimfire laws. So you can still use rimfire on the state land. Wherever you could use rimfire before, you could still use rimfire. Okay.
So when you're hunting, when you're doing couple sets at a particular evening, and you're gonna hit private and also state ground, you take both calibers with you?
Yes, we do.
Don't worry about.
Most of the time we're hunting private property because we have a large chunk of property that's actually property damage control, and the owners want to see us out there. We always explain to the owners, usually when you get somebody to call you out there, they think you're going to hunt like deer and you're going to be out there every day. I always have the conversation that that's not going to be the case. Expect to see me at the most twice a month. I'll always tell them the color of my truck. Some of them don't want me to call. Some of them do. I keep notes of all that. But yeah, generally we're on private land. So we have enough of the private stuff that they want us back for property damage control that we don't end up on the state land. Well, once in a while we do. Yes, sir.
The best call for the best, there's different seasons of the year, what would you recommend?
I'm sorry, I'm very hard of hearing.
What, the best calls for different, now that you can hunt year round, what's the best calls for the seasons of the year?
Yeah, can we get into that towards the end?
Sure.
We'll talk about different calls and stuff to use.
Yeah,
Yes.
one more. Does anybody use the 204 Ruger?
The 204?
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of people are using a 204.
What are the goods, bads versus the 223, the 204?
I can't speak to the benefits of the 204 because I've never shot a 204 and have not shot a predator with a 204. I've used the 223, anywhere from a 40 grain Sierra Blitz King. I'm currently shooting now the Hornady VMAX 53 grain. I hand load everything. So, is that somebody here or is that somebody outside? Outside. Like I said, I'm hard of hearing. I have my hearing aids in. I'm doing the best I can. So if I get confused, just help straighten me out.
Are you supposed to use 269 below on state land too up here, north of the firearm?
You can use, yes.
During the daytime?
During the day and night.
You got only
Above the
269
line.
or below, right?
No,
Or can
daytime
you-
is unrestricted.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, daytime is unrestricted.
Okay.
There was never a daytime restriction, and there still is never a daytime restriction anywhere in the state. Not even down here, if that makes any sense to you.
No.
So it doesn't to me.
What time's a good time to set up, or what time do you guys usually set up?
Anywhere from right after dark to, and we'll hunt all the way through. Let me back up. Rob will hunt all the way through till daylight comes up. About 2 years ago, I got to the point where, about 3, 4 o'clock, I'm kicking out, shifting gears. But yeah, and we've tried to go. Geez, it seems like the first 2 hours is dark, and the last 2 hours before it gets dark seems to be better. But yet we've shot plenty of them at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. So I can't stand up here and say, guys, this is the best time to go out. It's really hard to say. Okay. Actually, we are running out of time, so let's turn this over to Q&A then. Let's turn the lights back up, Rob. Now, the first question was calls this time of year. I do want to show one thing before we go on to that. A lot of people will contact me and say, man, I've got the coyotes, they're howling at me, I can't get them to come out. I don't have a magic bullet for that, but I can tell you what's worked. Has it worked 100% of the time? No. No, it hasn't. But it works often enough that I use it. And I'm going to bring up, the unit I use actually records every button push, the volume that I've used, the temperature, the moon phase, the barometric pressure, all that stuff. But what's most handy is I can go back and see what volume, what sound I was playing when things were working for me. And I've referred to that a lot. So let's jump to that. That I've got the TX1000 remote has got the ability to record the Fox data. And I know a lot of guys that don't use it at all. I'm kind of a techie guy, and I thought, man, this is kind of cool, maybe it'll teach me something, and it has. It's helped me. I'm the kind of guy that'll forget, right after I played the call, what did I just play? You know, so it helps. All right.
How much?
How much?
I think a Shockwave's like $5.99 or $6.99. I don't know.
They've actually had this unit on sale for $3.99 in the past at different times. Watch online. A lot of times it will drop down to $3.99. I think they're $4.99 now. And you can also, guys are selling them the newer units and stuff. And you can just, so you can find them. Oh, but you can't hear me anymore, can you? This time of year, you'll see guys stepping up into different equipment and stuff. That's a good buy. There are, like I said, there are several units.
What'd you say that was, a TX1000?
So there are cheaper ones out there to do the job.
Yeah, that's what the remote is.
Can everybody read that okay, or do I need to zoom this one? What was the consensus? It's okay.
No.
You can't. Okay. Well, let me go here.
Keep on going.
Get glasses.
We got them.
There you go.
Okay. This particular night, we went back to one of our normal haunts that we hadn't been to in a year. And very first sound I played was the coyote pair of howls. Very unintimidating coyote sound. It just sounds like a pair of young coyotes yipping and howling to each other. That hadn't gone through, I think, the first yip, or maybe the second yip, and the pack that we know to be out about 500 yards back in the swampy area lit up. And oh boy, were they fired up. I mean, they were just carrying it on like crazy. I thought, okay, here we go. Next task is, all right, we know they're there. How the hell do we get them out? So I kept up with the yipping howls. Volume, I just dropped one. And then I went to a different sound. This was one of Tony Tebbe's sounds, a piss coyote. This sounds like one guy's a little cranked, but that's where they were acting. Okay, they were sounding like they were gruff and mad and angry and carrying on. And so I answered back with that. And then I thought, okay, I'm gonna switch it up. And I went to a distress. So here we got some coyotes, and now we're killing some food.
How much time on each one of them before you changed up?
This one was, stand time was at 8:33. This sound was 11:36, 11 minutes and 36 seconds into the stand. I didn't play that very long, and I went to at 11:49, 11 minutes 49 seconds. I went to the Tony Tebbe sound, and by then they had started moving into us. We could hear them. They had closed that 500-yard gap to probably 300, but you still can't see them. So I went to this rapid distress. Well, that didn't work. And they quieted down. I went silent for a while, probably 5 minutes. Made no sound at all. Came back in with Tony Tibic Coyote Showdown, which sounds like some coyotes barking and carrying on back and forth to each other. That played, and unfortunately this won't show you when it's muted, but I know I muted it after it had kind of gone through about 2 minutes worth of playing. I muted it, it was quiet, and I played the hurt pup, which, like I said, works a lot of times. Didn't work so well that time. Hit the 20 Tubby Den Raid, and I'll play that for you here in a minute, see what it sounds like. It's got some light growling and stuff, carrying on, and pup yipping, and it sounds terrible. And they started back in again. Okay, now they're closer. Now they've come in closer. And I don't know why this went into rodent distress, but it should have been, when my fox bang should have recorded the coyote pup screams. At this point, one had come in close enough for me to take a shot.
We went into the rodent distress because that one come out and hung up.
Oh, yeah, we had one hung out in the left field, right? That's right. That's right. And so, in the meantime, we had one come out and hung up a little farther. So we had two of them come in. One came in 220 yards this direction, and the other one was 250 yards this direction. Still want to try and get them in closer. Well, that's what happened. When this fox bang went off, one was directly down in front of us. Unfortunately, these guys are sitting in some taller weeds. We got a moon out, right, guys? Full moon. I'm sitting there this way with my rifle. These two guys are sitting here. They should clearly get a shot at it, but the grass was too tall, and so they couldn't see through it. So they said, shoot it, shoot it. I went, you're crazy, I'm lit up by the moon. You know, I'm gonna run him off. Well, I did end up, he started in moving closer, and as he started in moving closer, I took that opportunity to change position to get onto him. So, longest story is, after an hour's worth, I blew the shot. But hey, we still got two of them to come in. We still got two coyotes to come in. So, that kind of an issue, that kind of thing worked for you. But you guys want to hear that coyote den raid?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. I guess I turn that on? Yeah, I'll turn it down. We'll start out low, guys.
Yeah.
A little louder.
Oh, you know what? It went to sleep. These, after they've sat an hour being on, they go into a sleep mode for battery.
If they're not being used.
If they're not being used.
It won't shut off on your stand.
Unless you fall asleep.
Yeah. That's been known to happen to our other hunting buddy, but not us. Well, shoot. I wonder if the battery dropped on it. I'm going to pull the battery out of this and disconnect it. It only takes a second. See if we can revive it. I think I may have not charged the battery up.
Realistically, people always ask that question. There is no magic 100% sound. Any type of pup distress works well any time of the year. Around breeding season, breeding sounds will work. I mean, outside of that, it's just how that coyote's feeling at that specific moment. What's the breeding season? They're in breeding season right now.
Right now, you're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And the denning will start heavily about 3 weeks.
There are some coyotes you can pick a fight with on some days, and they'll come in looking for a fight. You could do that to the same coyote 2 days later, and it'll run, 2 properties over.
I recommend to you guys, there's a lot of stuff online that you guys can listen to that'll play sounds that are intimidating. Learn those sounds before you really start using any vocals outside of the pup distress stuff and the female low howls and that kind of thing, because you could end up burning yourself by giving the wrong response.
I stay away from vocals for the most part because of that outside pup distress and turn back off season and stuff.
Okay, see.
We tend to overthink stuff, like a lot of guys. Bird distress noises work great at nighttime. You don't hear a bird all night.
Yeah.
I hunt 15 minutes outside of Lansing. I've caught them with prairie dog distress and baby porcupine. You can't find either of those anywhere around here. And I've had good luck with it. So.
They're looking for that odd animal. Oh. This is how the den rate starts out. Boy, you sounded terrible. That was good.
Do you have one like a feeding frenzy or something like that?
Yeah, Tony has a feeding frenzy. I can't say that I've ever used it, so I can't say it's worked. These are some sounds that have worked and I know have worked, but there's a ton of them out there, guys, that probably work too. Like I said, all we're here doing today is sharing with you what works for us. Get out and experiment. Try it. Spend the time in the field to get hands-on. That's the best advice I can give. Read, go to the seminars, listen to the guys that have been around for a while. If you have the opportunity to have a mentor close by to take you out, do it. Spend the time to go with him, and eventually it'll come around.
90% of your success is your approach, your setup, and are there even coyotes there?
Exactly. And that's,
you can have the 100% sound that works every single time, but if you play that sound and that coyote has to cross your scent path to get there, it ain't coming.
right. Not coming.
Is you guys set up all by scouting to tell where the coyotes are, or do you ever use a locator call?
The only time I've used a locator call is when I've been up around the Gaylord area and a lot of that national forest property that's up there. And I will go out during the day and use a locator to see if I can get them to give me a close indication of where they're at. I'll pop up Google Maps, mark the location, and come back at night for setup. So that's
so more for scout. You scout it out before you don't go in and make any noise before you sit down.
I'm sorry?
You don't go in and make any noise before you sit down. Like when you go to set up, you're just going in, setting up, and then hunting.
I generally do my locating calls during the day.
Okay.
For new ground.
Okay.
So I don't know. I guess we have a couple of times. Matter of fact, the time that the shockwave fell off the top of my truck, we were using it that night. So yeah, that's another tip, guys. Don't put your call up on top of your topper. Do some locating calls and leave it there and drive off. It's not very good on. It's not very good on. This one took well, actually, not throw a bone for Foxborough, but I think 3 years ago, Rob and I were out, and we had just finished up a spot, and we knew we had the whole next 2 sections, which is 2 square miles, that we could hunt. So I did do a locating howl from there, and sirens work. That'll get them howling. It does all the time at my house. If I step out and I hear the siren going, 9 times out of 10 I'll hear a coyote howling, or the group howling. And a lot of times it isn't immediate. It seems to be, sometimes they want to wait 2 or 3 minutes, and then they come back and start in with that howl. Like, yeah, I had left it on top of the truck, and Rob and I drove 30 miles to go to the other side of the county, and got out of the truck and went, oh no. So it had dropped out, broken, cased a couple places and knocked that out, and I ended up taking it apart and fixing it, putting it back together. And last August, the left speaker quit working, and I was getting some crackling out of it, and I called Fox Pro. I said, I need to send this back to you. I said, I'm sure it's going to be my nickel. Fell off the truck 3 years ago, broke the case, cracked it. It didn't leave holes or anything like that, but it cracked the case. Told him, I said, I've opened the thing up, I glued the lens back in and all that. I said, just fix it for me. Let me know how much it's going to be, and then get it back to me as soon as you can. I said, okay. I sent it to him. 6 days later, I received my unit back. This, I mean, I pretty much do all the calling for us when we're together. There's a lot of miles on this equipment. These keypads, you could hardly read the stuff anymore. The screen itself, before I got the protector, was all scratched up. This screen was all scratched up. The case was pretty well wore. I got a bad brain on these guys. It was, the keypad was all new. They replaced this lens, which I never said anything about. What I had a problem with was the range had dropped down on it. This remote wasn't responding all the time. The remote button wasn't responding all the time. I believe it was the left speaker had quit working, and I was getting some crackling on certain sounds. So it came back running guys. That was in August. 3 weeks ago, I get some crackling on my female lone holes, which I love. I play them on almost every set. And I checked, make sure that my batteries were okay. I wasn't getting a battery drop, and I called them and I said, you guys just, in August, now it's out of warranty. I called them up and I said, this thing's way out of warranty. I know it's on my deal. Have you got any refurb units sitting around? I've got a seminar to do. I've got a couple of coyote tournaments I want to do. Have you got a refurb you can send me? And I told the guy what it was doing. He said, what's your address? Gave him my address. He said, we'll ship one out to you tomorrow. And he said, just ship the other one back, no charge. Wow.
You're an influencer.
3 or 4 days later, I don't have a refurb sitting in the mail. They sent me a brand new unit. So, okay, that's my little pitch, but they really took care of me. And nothing against the other brands out there, nothing at all. Honestly, I've never used any of the other ones, so I can't tell you whether they're good or bad. I can just tell you my experience with Fox would have been amazing.
Who makes the cover you got for your remote?
This is Boondock Outdoors. They don't advertise they have to. They have them. They hand make every one for you. I have trimmed this, the sides, and this is all covered. I like to have the tactile fix the button side to trim it. But Boondock Outdoors, and I think it was $29 or something like that. Worth every penny of it.
Any idea as far as hunting bigger cover, like swamps and stuff like that? I mean, is it...
That's shotgun territory, and there are a lot of guys who do it, and there's been instances where I kind of wish we did it. But I can't really talk to that because it's always at night, and we're always hunting in the open field. Our goal is to try and get them out there for it, and it works for us.
It's really tough seeing through that stuff at nighttime.
Especially with a light.
With lights or digital night vision. Thermal does okay.
Right.
But the rest of it's tough. It can be done, but.
Okay, first, I think I had 2 hands back here. Okay, hold on a second, guys.
How many decibels do you play?
Decibels?
Yeah, how high?
I don't have a decibel meter, but I can tell you that it depends on the area. If I'm hearing the echo coming back, I know that maybe I ought to back it back down a little bit. The other weekend, we were hunting at 30-mile-an-hour winds. Every sound I played was at 40. This goes from 0 to 40, okay? So, and some sounds just aren't normally as loud as others. So some of them at 40 are knocking you out of the woods. Some of them at 40 you can hardly hear. So, set-wise, I generally start out with a distress sound low. I'm going to 15 or down. Okay, 15 or down. You don't know if that coyote is 100 yards sitting in the woods asleep and you didn't see him laying down with the thermal or whatever, or with your lights. You don't know. So start out with that. And most of the time, my hands always get cold because I've got my thumbs exposed at the end of my fingers, and I'm working that volume down, up and down all the time. So keep that in mind. Always changing the sounds up, changing that volume up. Did that answer your question? Yep. Okay.
I've hunted thick kind of cover before, and we were using a hand call when we first started out, and we had one howl back to us, and we could hear him coming through the cattails towards us. Like I said, it was thick cover, about 25 yards away, thick brush line going in a circle around us. Well, they got there, and all of a sudden, once we heard them stop, they just sat there barking at us. They just sat barking for about 8-9 minutes, barking and doing circles around us.
Was it a sharp bark?
Just quick.
They knew you were there.
That's
That's
so they
what we call the booger bark.
We just
that is the booger bark.
Here's the only downfall with hand calls, and when you get in thick stuff like that and whatever, like, if they can't see it and get their eyes on it, they want to get downwind and they want to smell it. They want to smell what's making that noise. Well, at that point, you're making that noise. So they got downwind and they smelled you.
Yeah,
we got up and walked out because there was no point.
Okay.
When you're calling at night, have you ever, instead of sitting, have you ever tried standing?
Yeah, we have when we think we can get away with it. Most instances, the lower you are to the ground, the better off you are. You're less obvious. You just are. That one particular, you know, if you got a moon out, you got ambient light, you got snow, don't stand. Don't stand. Always trying to use, if the moon is out, always try and set up so that the moon shade from the trees or whatever, the shadow, you're in the shadows, and use that to your advantage to sit. Standing isn't the best idea. So, we've gotten away with it. Would I use it on a routine basis? No. No, I wouldn't.
The biggest thing is trying, just make sure you don't want to cast the shadow and you don't want to skyline yourself, no matter what you do.
Right.
We've sat out in the middle of wide open fields on the back side of a rise, just down below the rise. Come down the hill a little bit. Or if you got trees further back behind you on the edge of the field, then you're okay. Because anything approaching you from the front can't see you sky.
Yeah, we wish they had a whiteboard here to kind of show that what Rob's describing here. Now, you heard me say that we were sitting right up on top of that feeding field with the sun coming from this way. We really didn't have anything to backlight us, so we weren't too worried about being skylined at that point. On that particular set. So that rule applies based on where you're at. You have to think it through. Always imagine you're the coyote, and you're going to be looking that way. What are you going to see? Okay, put it that way.
What do you do with the pelts?
If it's a good time of the year, we're selling them.
Do you skin them yourself, or?
Well,
let's just say he knows a guy.
Honestly, thumbs urger on this one, and contemplating on trying to get this done for this old guy to try and do that. It's tough on me. So I'll either pay somebody to skin it, or Rob will go, damn it, let me. And by the way, Rob and I have been hunting together now, I think 5 years. Something like that. I generally always hunted alone, but that was back before I really got into night hunting. Okay, always hunted alone. Had private property. Property owners really been a kid. My daughter calls me up. Goes, Dad, you remember Rob, don't you? Oh yeah. Nice guy. My daughter was one of those girls that liked to move every year to a different apartment. I called Dad. And Mom. Well, twice Rob had been there to help her. They're just friends. And so I knew him that way. And she goes, Dad, Rob wants to kayak hunt. He's been out a couple times, got all the gear. I know that you're really fussy about who you take with you and that kind of thing. So she started to call and ask. And I went, yeah, I remember Rob. Seemed like a pretty good guy. I said, did he get a hunter safety certificate? And, you know, what kind of guy, you know, I knew he was a good guy. Just wanted to make sure. You know, yeah, he does. He's got a hunter certificate and he deer hunts and all that stuff. So I took him out one time. He's been with me ever since. I'm 64 years old, and I can tell you the only reason I am still moving is because of this guy. You older guys, get yourself a younger guy to go hunting with, and he will force you. Okay, force you. I can tell when we back off a little bit, and I sit on my butt a little bit too much, because we're out there humping across that field, and I'm carrying a backpack. I'm the guy carrying a backpack with my chair and my tripod and the call strapped to it. And then I've got the AR across in front of me, and I got this out, and I got my heavy boots on. We're going out 600 yards across the field, and boy, I'll tell you what, it'll whoop you. I want to leave everybody, okay.
I got two. First would be, what's your biggest Michigan coyote that you guys got? And my second question would be, if they were to open up a wolf season in Michigan again, would some of these tactics work for them, or is it?
They would all work for wolf. And what was your first question?
Biggest Michigan coyote you guys have gotten?
Right here.
Last year at River Rats tournament, I took one night. When we brought it in, it was 49 pounds and 13 ounces. I weighed it the night before, and it was just over 50, but blood had leaked out of it, and it was wet when I weighed it and everything. So, but we weighed it on 2 different scales, and it was almost 50 pounds.
The average for a female seems to have been gone up a little bit over the last year. We competed in the Great Lakes Predator Challenge, and our team came in 8th and 11th, by the way. So out of 51 teams, I think we did all right. Had some equipment malfunction, had me miss 2. So that didn't help much, but we still finished all right. But what I'd like to leave everybody with is you don't need expensive equipment to go out there and do this, okay? You don't. You get yourself a decent light. If you've got an old red light from 10, 8, even 5 years ago, that technology is no good anymore. You get into these newer lights, they're much brighter, the beam can be focused down better, the levels can be played with. At one time you had to have a day scope. If you're using a red light, you had to have a real good day scope that gathered light really well to be effective with it. That's no longer true. You can go get yourself a Tasco scope that will hold 0 for you and put one of these new lights on it and get by with that kind of a setup. So you can get into this a lot cheaper, and if you want to try it and money's holding you back, don't shoot for the moon. Go out and get the lights. This right here, you'd be surprised how many coyotes that's killed for people. Not necessarily that right there, but just a toy squeaker. You can get those things for a couple of bucks, you know. You can go out and give it a try. It takes a while. There's nobody in the world who can stand up here and give you all the secrets. I've shared with you what's worked for us, and I hope that it's helped in some way. If not, we're with Dog Tired TV, the group of us. You can reach us on Facebook. You can see our YouTube videos, Dog Tired TV. Reach out to us, ask questions. We tout ourselves as, we take new people out all the time. You know, people will call up and say, can you help me do this? Can you help me do that? And we're all willing to do that. With that in mind,
9 times out of 10, we've got all kinds of extra gear where we can show up and
yeah.
bring everything.
Yeah.
Rifles. Just with everything being said, just be responsible and try to use some sense. Like I've seen some guys online, well, I got this light off eBay for 25 bucks and I can see 120 yards, that's good enough for me. That's fine, what are you going to put it on? Oh, my 223. Please don't do that.
Put it on a BB gun.
400-yard gun. I can identify a guy with 100 yards. Just, you know, I try to tell guys, put it on a shotgun and that's what you got, but try to We got this center fire around and they will take it back just as easy as they gave it to us.
Like I started it out with, positively ID and know what's behind. That applies day or night. And that was our argument to the DNR. It's the hunter's responsibility to make sure that he's taking that safe shot in any condition, whether you're hunting at night or during the day. And we spent 14 months, every single meeting going through that. So that was the biggest thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was not just me. I had to be the guy that got things started and rolling. But I can tell you that Rob, a fellow by the name of Merle Jones, Fred Gasby, Kevin Rock from Overdrive Outdoors, some of the guys from Michigan Coyote Hunting Outdoors, they're just a Paul. You need the Paul out here with Predator Hunter Outdoors lights. Look, guys, I'm telling you, at the last meeting, that proposal that finally went out left out lights and thermal. I got wind of it. I called Paul. I said, Paul, obviously trying to get video through a day scope on how effective a red light is over days takes some doing. And he went and did that. He was able to present those videos to the NRC. The NRC overruled the recommendation from the Wildlife Division to leave red lights out and thermal. That man out there is the guy responsible to thank for that, because he went to that last meeting, took his time to put those videos, presentation videos together, and help get this through. Otherwise, the lights would have been out. We wouldn't have had lights. Everyone?
It's a learning experience.
Thank you. Go on, have fun.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.